All right, today we're heading out to a rugged desert fortress, one that overlooks the Dead Sea, to really unpack the final dramatic chapter of the First Jewish-Roman War. We're talking about the story of Masada. It's an incredible tale of defiance, of ingenuity, and a final absolutely tragic choice. So let's just dive right in.
And really, this is the question that's at the very heart of the Masada story. I mean, to even begin to understand the answer, we've got to go back. We need to look at the fire of rebellion that brought this small group of people to make their last stand against the most powerful empire in the world.
So how did it all lead to this moment? This last stand at Masada, it wasn't some isolated event, not at all. It was the explosive final act in a really long and bitter conflict against Roman rule.
Okay, so the Great Jewish Revolt, it kicks off back in 66 CE, and it's really fueled by years and years of resentment. But Rome's response, it was just overwhelming. By 70 CE, they had totally crushed Jerusalem and destroyed the sacred Second Temple. I mean, the very heart of Jewish life. This was an absolute catastrophe. And in the aftermath of all that, there was just one final point of defiance left standing, the fortress of Masada.
So let's take a look at the two forces that are about to face off in this pretty dramatic showdown. On one side, you've got this determined band of rebels, holed up in their nearly impenetrable fortress. And on the other, the full might of an empire that's determined to crush them.
So, who were these defenders? Well, they were known as the Sicarii, a group of Jewish zealots led by a man named Eleazar ben Yair. After Jerusalem fell, they took their families and fled to Masada, and they absolutely refused to submit to Roman rule. You have to understand, for them, freedom was everything. And honestly, they couldn't have picked a better spot. Masada wasn't just some castle. It was a total masterpiece of defensive engineering. It was built decades earlier by Herod the Great, the Roman client king famous for his colossal building projects. He built Masada as his own personal refuge. So everything about it, and I mean everything, from the fortified walls to the huge storerooms and these advanced water cisterns, it was all designed for one single purpose: to withstand a long, brutal siege.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. The sheer scale of the Roman response. This wasn't just some minor cleanup operation for them. No way. Rome was sending a message, loud and clear. So, inside the fortress, you have the defenders. We're talking roughly 960 people in total. And remember, that number includes men, women, and children. Just a small community clinging to their freedom. And now, look at what they were up against. The Roman governor, a guy named Lucius Flavius Silva, he shows up with the famed 10th Legion, plus auxiliary troops. The total force, nearly 10,000 soldiers. Just think about those odds. Absolutely staggering. And you can just see Rome's methodical approach here. First thing they do, they encircle the entire fortress with a wall, making sure nobody can escape. Then comes the really incredible part. They build this massive earthen ramp. I mean, this was a monumental engineering feat, hauling all that earth and stone just to get a giant siege tower into position. And once that battering ram started hammering the walls, well, the end was pretty much inevitable. So, the walls are breached. Capture is just hours away. The defenders are now faced with a final terrible choice, because they knew surrender meant slavery. And defeat was certain. The historian Josephus, he's really our primary and actually our only detailed source for what happened. He recorded the speech that their leader, Eleazar ben Yair, gave. He urged his followers to choose death over a life in chains. His words were, "Let us die before we become their slaves." And so, according to Josephus's account, they made a truly unimaginable decision. The men first killed their own wives and children to spare them from being captured by the Romans. Then they drew lots. A few were chosen to kill the rest of the men before one final man took his own life. So when the Roman soldiers finally broke through the next morning, they weren't met with a final battle. They were met with this eerie, deathly silence. And it's important to remember, while archaeology confirms the siege, confirms the fortress fell, the stunning details of what happened that night, they come to us only from the survivors, just 2 women and 5 children who had hidden themselves away and lived to tell the tale. But this tragic event wasn't the end of Masada's story, not by a long shot. For centuries, the place was largely forgotten, but its rediscovery, way later in the modern era, gave it this powerful new legacy.
Yeah, after it fell, Masada was just abandoned. Its story was almost lost to the desert sands for hundreds of years. But then, in the 1960s, these extensive archaeological digs, led by a man named Yigael Yadin, brought the site and its incredible story roaring back to life. And in our modern era, it was transformed into something so much more than just a historical site. Today, Masada is way more than just a place you can visit. It's an incredibly powerful symbol in Jewish culture and for the state of Israel. It's come to represent this fierce determination to live free, a willingness to sacrifice absolutely everything rather than submit to oppression. It really stands as this enduring testament to the resilience of the human spirit, especially when faced with impossible odds. And so we're left with that really complex question, aren't we? Was this the ultimate act of heroism, or was it a profound tragedy? Maybe it's both. But what is absolutely certain is that the story of Masada remains a powerful and, yeah, a deeply challenging testament to the lengths people will go for their freedom.